Welcome. My name is Heather Sims, and I'm going to be presenting on teaching low-skilled learners online, which was an interactive presentation I gave in December and January this year for HOLEX. And it came as a result of being part of the Digital ACE team. We got together in the summer as a working party, and people from all over the country to talk about their experiences of working online. And working with low-skilled learners. So my stream, low-skilled learners, is one of 6 streams. So in this series, there are also a whole series of resources on policy, safeguarding and prevent, developing resources, quality assurance, underpinning technology, and this one, low-skilled learners. And so I would really strongly recommend you have a look at the other HOLEX streams as well. And they'll back up what comes here and give you a lot more detail too. So the Digital ACE project has been designed really to support the ACE providers going forward and help them develop skills and also continue the high standards that already exist. My stream was chaired by Sarah Howarth. And at the end of the meetings that we held, she wrote up a report, which is really worth looking at, because if you have a look there, you'll see lots of suggestions for going forward and also lots of resources there, links and case studies. Very interesting work that's been going on. So in this session, the people who joined me online were prompted by the slides that come up next, so that we can have a really full discussion and compare notes and insights going forward. And we kicked off by looking at the sort of things that a tutor is thinking about right now, the curriculum design managers, all incredibly busy as usual, trying to deliver the best we can, and now also delivering online and trying to make that difference to every learner we can. So there are some basics, just depending on who you have in your class. But if you are dealing with people who are just on their phone, then some of these issues are really helpful. So some of these tips. So one thing is making sure your font size is large enough. And when you prepare resources to make sure that you check on a phone or on an iPad to see how it actually looks, because some things are just not as accessible as they would be if you were on a laptop. And also making sure that your background is not a glaring white. We know that we need to be very flexible and things may not work out, so having a plan B all the time. And also, if people have had a big technological challenge to get to you, then making sure that they get a good warm welcome, and then they are working not too big a challenge straight away, so that they are reassured that it was worth it when we get there. One aspect of teaching now that is very, very important is keeping our learners safe online and making sure that all learners know what to do if they have anything to report, if they're concerned. There are some super videos out there that you can use, but also just basic tips on how to stay safe online, how to make strong passwords, perhaps accompanying learners with buddying LSAs so that they can work together on that. So there's that aspect, the actual keeping learners safe and giving good guidelines. And actually, if you look on strand 5 on the HOLEX site, you will see some typical guidelines that are there. And some areas are producing videos on those, and some are furnishing classrooms with their guidelines. But in addition to that, there's another angle to it, which is the way tutors can feel about their learners. And there is a little sense of, oh, we want to keep them safe, we want to keep them sort of nurtured, which is a natural response to the new thing of going online. Sometimes tutors can be a bit overcautious with that, and once they have their learners engaged, they need to continue to offer that stretch and challenge whenever they can. And so yes, safety, but also the next step, push on to both support and stretch. So when we come to feeling safe, these are some of the things that can help a learner to feel safe and to feel like they belong in an online class. And these ones are very similar, but they also are stabilizing for a learner so that they don't feel passive. They feel that they do have a stake in that class. Now there's one on there that says expressing feelings promptly. And that's wonderful if you can get it happening in your classroom. But at the same time, there are some learners who just don't feel comfortable to do that in front of everybody else, or when they feel they're exposed in the classroom. And so it's important to have other channels happening. So it could be a follow-up phone call. It could be typing on something. It could be just a quick thumbs up or thumbs down if they're not happy. Finding other ways that learners can express how they're feeling. This slide is there because I have observed some classes where I've seen learners sitting very, very quietly, and the tutor is doing a lot of the talking, and somehow feeling the responsibility is on them to generate a lot of the teaching and to fill in the gaps, any quiet moments. And I think that is something we need to work on to redress the balance so that our learners are contributing as far as possible, because otherwise we don't know what's going on in their minds, and we do need them to engage with us. And some of the things on the right-hand side on the slide there are what could be happening when you think a learner is sitting quietly listening. Are these things happening? And so we need to get them proactive in the teaching and learning. So this slide is just thinking about territory. So when we're in a classroom, we have far more control really over what learners experience and how they behave to one another. But when they're at home, clearly they are in their own territory. Things can be very different there. And so good ground rules, but also readiness with the mute button and training that way, and also possibly turning off the video is going to be important. One of the tutors who came on this discussion was saying that she has cards for herself ready so she can hold up mute when she needs to, without saying it every time. And that has helped learners to respond and work out where their controls are. And the ground rules are particularly important here, but we do have to be flexible. These are the strange times, and we do have to expect the unexpected. So this one, I'm wondering what you've come across during your teaching time. You may have encountered some situations you might not have anticipated, and I'm wondering how you deal with them. So when people are sometimes a little bit sharp in a class, or they might ask awkward questions or something like that, it can sometimes be that they are uncomfortable with the situation, and so what comes across is not actually how they're feeling. And this might be a time when they need to have an additional one-to-one time with you, or possibly with your LSA, or times when they can relax and talk in a different way, perhaps have a social chat or play a game, or some way that takes the tension out of the situation that you're in. Working on a shared goal is one way that learners seem to really enjoy working together, and it helps them to forget themselves really and overcome some of the shyness they might feel. There are lots of lovely teaching tools out there, and if you look at the web talk on collaboration, you'll experience quite a few of those. But some of the ones that have been mentioned are Wordwall, and as well as that, there are things like breakout rooms have been proving very popular now. So ways that you can actually get your groups into smaller discussion points and help your learners to bond together that way. I think also with trust goes underpinning the trust, the ground rules, and also helping learners to express themselves safely and understanding that things are confidential in that classroom, just as you would discuss that in a classroom. But also the realization that if something needs your attention, it is going to happen. So this one is about what happens when you can't really tell what's happening in front of you. That there may be a lot of thinking going on and a lot of processing happening right in front of you on the screen. And just because somebody's quiet doesn't mean to say they're not engaging in the teaching and learning. It may very well be. And also, have you equipped them with the vocabulary they need to complete tasks? And can you empower them to become the sort of experts or the teachers? And are you using their knowledge and their experience in your teaching? And also, are you allowing time for the processing to take place? So there is a sort of tendency to feel, yes, I want to have the feedback coming to me right away because I'm teaching and it's quiet. But in fact, we know all these things take a lot of time. And so we have to allow it and also allow multiple opportunities for these areas to be covered. Just as important as all the things that happen actually on screen, are also the bit of time that you allow for learners to be away from the screen. And that might happen several times in a class just to alleviate that sense of sitting still. It's good for them to be moving around. It's good to relieve a little bit of the tension that's going on. So I would change the planning a little bit of a session so that your learners can get up, walk about, come back. Take breaks and get used to doing that. And I think that will improve the session. Sometimes, despite our best intention, things don't go quite as well as we'd like. And so these are two grounding rules for us to think about what really matters and how can I achieve that given the difficulties I had when I'm teaching. And that will reassure you that if you can get those points through one way or another, then you are doing your job well. And this is coming back to the balance that we're looking for, where our learners are interacting 80% of the time and we are delivering for 20% of the time. So whether that's through polls or creating sort of mini experts within the group, or a game that's on the screen that learners can lead in. It could be that as learners progress with their technical skills, they're able to guide other learners around the screen in terms of controlling the technology. But look for ways to bring your learners on in that sense so that they are participating more and you are able to sit back more and monitor more closely. So as you are monitoring, you will find that learners are very different and we are still having to juggle all the things we've always had to juggle about the way people work, their preferred learning styles, their own contributions, the stretch and challenge each needs, the support they might need. That's still going to be just as important online. But what we do have now is the possibility of posting up. If you're using Google Classroom, for example, you can post to individuals and you really can customize the work that they're doing. And so this gives us greater scope, I think, for that than perhaps everybody in a classroom because learners can also, once they understand, for instance, Googling things, they will be able to go off and do their own bits of research and develop their own interests, and will probably find that they like to come back and tell you what they found out. And if you've got parents working with children, then you'll probably find that they are gaining quite a lot through their children's education and from the time they're investing in developing their children's education. So things are shifting a lot, both in circumstances, in capabilities, and in learning. So I've covered quite a few of these things. But I think this is the end point that we're looking for, is where learners are taking more and more charge of their own destiny and their own learning. And sharing screen is one way of getting that feedback, so you can actually see what's going on with them, and that they, as confidence comes, they are able to take more of that control. So one way of dealing with the pressure that can come for learners in an online classroom is to have control of it before they get to the session. So if you can teach learners so that they are set up to learn during the week and then appear to you the following week ready to go, or the following session, I found that learners come in with a freshness and with a confidence that they wouldn't have had if they hadn't been able to work on their own or with family at home. So I would definitely recommend priming and feeding forward. And that would lead us on to next steps. And particularly at the moment, we're coming to that time in the year when we're thinking about either next term, about exams, about where our learners will go next, what their long-term aims are, and how what we're teaching them will feed into next year's plans, and how we're going to discuss that with them. So I'm just rounding up now, just with a bit of encouragement for you and for some of the basics there. A big thank you for listening to this presentation. I hope you've enjoyed the images, and if there's anything you'd like to know or you'd like to get back to me on, please contact me at any time. It's hsims26@gmail.com, and I also work for Bucks Adult Learning.